Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Like we say on this show, it all depends the time zone from where you are watching us from. Welcome to The Leader, courtesy of the Evangelical Alliance of Kenya on Hope Media. My name is Edmund Mudibo. From conception to natural death. That is the topic we're going to have today, what we're going to discuss today. When does life begin? Does it end? Well, to help us unpack this topic, my very good friend, Counsel Richard Kakeeto. I hope I got it right.
Very well pronounced.
Kenya Christian Professionals Forum Life Committee Convener.
That's right.
You're a heavyweight.
I thank God. All glory to God.
Amen. So tell us, who is Richard Kakeeto? Have you always wanted to be what you are today? Are you living your life?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Richard Kakeeto is enjoying his life. And Richard Kakeeto is happily pro-life. The pro-life seeds were sowed in my spirit, so to say, in the year 2006, if I would say so. I go to a university where I was assisting in catechism. I teach the Catholic teaching to university students. And these students get into a debate with a professor they had invited, and they were discussing bioethical pro-life questions. I realized how much I didn't know on matters pro-life, and my students of the faith knew a little more than I did. So I dived into studying this question of pro-life, and here I am now, a very serious and happy advocate of the right to life.
In terms of family life?
Family life, I am happily married to Jacqueline, and we were blessed with 7 children. Only 6 are alive. One of them preceded us in heaven. I would say that we are doing our best to be good parents.
Wonderful. Now, let's begin with the end in mind. At the end of this show, if we could achieve at least one, if not all, of these expected outcomes, then we'll have done justice to the subject matter.
Yeah.
In terms of one, to educate you, the viewers, on the sanctity of life from a biblical, ethical, and scientific perspective. Secondly, to clarify misconceptions about the pro-life stance and address common counter-arguments. Thirdly, to inspire action by encouraging individuals and communities you out there to advocate for life at all stages. And lastly, engage with you with thought-provoking discussions and interactive participation even outside and beyond this show. So, why do you think the sanctity of life is such a critical issue today, especially in our society? And I suggest that you can use this opportunity at KCPF, that is the Kenya Christian Professionals Forum. What inspired it to come in?
And by the way, thank you for hosting us. Evangelical Alliance of Kenya is a founding church grouping to the Kenya Christian Professionals Forum. And those of us who are privileged to be part of the founding of Kenya Christian Professionals Forum, we remember fondly that Kenya Christian Professionals Forum began executing its mandate even before it was founded. This is what happened. People should remember that in the year 2010, Evangelical Alliance of Kenya, the National Council of Churches of Kenya, the Kenya Conference of Catholic Bishops, told Christians that if this constitution, which was in draft at that time, is not rectified, it should be rejected. Because while it was very good in matters of governance, it was poor in matters of faith and morals. So at that time, the bishops needed professionals who would go around the country explaining to people why the bishops are asking them to reject the document. So at that time, we were so thinly spread, very few professionals were willing to explain to the public what the church was teaching, had proclaimed at that moment. So it didn't matter whether someone is evangelical or Catholic or Protestant, we went to all churches. I remember myself appearing at CITAM in Karen to try and explain to the Christians there, because at that time, my friend Ann Mbugwa, who was our leader at the time, was supposed to be in CITAM Valley Road. So she said, Richard, I can't be in Karen. You live close there. Go and represent them. And I also asked her to go to Guadalupe. I think she also appeared at Consolata Shrine. So that fraternity of Christian professionals at that time, even though we lost the constitutional battle, we said the war was still on. And for sure, everything our church leaders had told us would happen if the constitution is not corrected, would happen, has happened. The last was on 24th February 2023, when the Supreme Court decided that the NGO board should register an organization whose stated objectives are criminal. You've been following this. The lesbian organizations wanted to register, and when the NGO board rejected, they went to court, and the Supreme Court says you cannot discriminate against them, register them, even though their stated objectives are criminal. Yes, so that's what brought KCPF to bear. And KCPF has been celebrating this week of March, the week closest to the 25th of March. And I need to explain this because if March 25th did not happen, then December 25th could not happen. Okay?
Yeah.
I mean, we celebrate Christmas.
Right.
So gestation is 9 months. Something must have happened all around the 25th of March that helps us celebrate. So we celebrate this mystery of incarnation. Okay? The angel of the Lord declares unto Mary, and she becomes with a child. So around this week, we whose constitution says the life of a person begins at conception, that's when we choose to celebrate life from conception to natural death.
Interesting. I didn't know that in terms of just that whole, the 9 months. So,
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, if March 25th didn't happen, then December 25th wouldn't happen.
Interesting.
So we have to protect life from conception to natural death.
So then, do you think that life, the value of life has diminished in quote-unquote modern society? Why or why not?
Generally, the removal of faith and religion from life, over secularization of the world in which we live, relegates faith. And once we remove faith and remove God from the human equation, we dehumanize man. Okay, you remember there's this creation in the image and likeness of God. Okay, so the image, the dignity of the human person is largely pegged on having been created in the image and likeness of God. So once the world in which we live begins removing God from the equation, once we begin secularizing, then we shouldn't be surprised that the dignity of man is lowered, and therefore life becomes anything that can be messed with. Yes.
Now, life begins at conception, right? Now, there's some key scriptures here, and viewers, feel free to check on these. Jeremiah chapter 1, verse 5, Psalms 139, verses 13 to 16. And by the way, science doesn't contradict. There's medical evidence of life beginning at conception. For example, with the heartbeat, DNA, fetal development, and so on. So then, I know you're an advocate, and you would be affirmative from that perspective. But what does science say about when life begins, and how does it align with biblical truth from where you sit?
Yeah.
And while at it, what could be some common myths about the unborn child, and how can we counter them?
Yeah. I usually choose to speak like a layman on scientific terms, because for sure I'm a layman. Lawyers are called learned, but we are only learned because we have capacity to cross-examine the learned. Okay, we have capacity to cross-examine all professions. But the point is, life begins at conception. That's the term we use. And conception is, the Latin words are cum cepere, okay? To hold. Cepere is to hold, okay? So even people who have grown up on farms will tell you that when a cow conceives, they say, imeshika mimba. Kushika. Okay?
Yeah.
So it is, as long as the male and female gametes fuse, human life has started. If we go to investigate that specific formation, even if at cell level, will be distinguishable from that specific fusion in a cow, in a sheep, etc. So human life starts at conception. And science is agreed. Okay? But luckily in Kenya, even our law agrees. Article 26(1) says every person has a right to life.
Right.
Then it takes the next step and says the life of a person begins at conception. Not so many constitutions in the world are that express.
Not at the birth.
Exactly.
But at conception.
At conception.
Uh-huh.
And the reason that the Kenyan Constitution uses those terms is because while Boma's conference was going on in 2004, something happened. A kid in Nairobi River, okay, a street child, playing in Nairobi River, finds a unique kind of garbage. That garbage had not only rubbish, but what looked like human bodies, small babies. They call the police. Police checks the garbage, finds receipts and invoices coming from a certain clinic on Afia House. Meaning this garbage was linked to...
Yes, there was a link.
Where it had come from.
Right.
And I'm telling you, this doctor is arrested and the nurses are taken to court, unfortunately, for the murder of these babies. And I'm using the term unfortunately because we suspect the prosecution intended that the case fails. Yes. So they charge them for the murder. They did not charge them for abortion.
No, murder.
Or procuring, miscarriage. They charge them for
murder.
And Lady Justice Rawal, relying on the Criminal Procedure Code, says that what they had killed was incapable of being killed because life was considered in the Penal Code as a baby becomes a baby capable of being killed if they proceeded in a living state outside the womb of the mother. Okay, that's what the Criminal Procedure Code. So if they had charged them under procurement of abortion, probably the charges would have stuck. So then the drafters, who included the people of faith, I mean, we had church leaders in there, it was a very participatory process. They said, hapa, we will define precisely when life begins. Because we have a court decision that seems to suggest that we can kill in that period. And then the pushers of abortion made sure they undermine Article 26(2) with Article 26(4), which says that abortion is prohibited for sure, but unless, in the opinion of a trained health professional, the life or health. So they lowered the caliber of who can form the opinion from a registered medical practitioner to a trained health professional, and then they increased the grounds upon which the opinion could be formed. Okay, not just the life of the mother being in danger, but the health of the mother. And the health is a very wide range of things. It does not only mean physical well-being. It includes mental, social, and all these problems. So the morning sickness that someone would have as a result of pregnancy can very easily be interpreted as a health complication for which the baby should be terminated. The socioeconomic condition of the mother can very easily be interpreted as a health condition for which the baby should be killed. So those are the legal things that have come up regarding the question of conception. Okay, but because we are talking about conception to natural death, there are very many other problems along the way. The baby has been born, we have a lot of domestic violence, when they become younger and liberating themselves, we have drugs, we have abductions, we have accidents on the road, we then have euthanasia. Mercy killing, let's try and kill this woman or this man, they're becoming a bother to us, okay? Or let us happily send them to rest. They shouldn't suffer from what is going on. So the dangers to life are really many.
Now, clearly we're agreed that if an unborn child is fully human from conception, what moral responsibility do we have toward them? And there are those who argue that life in the womb is just quote-unquote potential life. So how do we refute that claim? And then how can we help people understand that every life, no matter how small, how frail, has value?
There's a woman of faith called Teresa of Calcutta. Okay, this woman says, if if we can let mothers kill their own babies, why should we be surprised that we have a lot of war and violence in the world? That's the language he used, trying to make a case for why the life in the womb should be protected. Societies are measured for their civilization based on the extent to which they protect the most vulnerable amongst them. The baby in the womb is as vulnerable as they come, regardless of the circumstances under which they've been conceived, whether rape, incest, all sorts of abuse. The baby in the womb is as vulnerable as they come. And we have a duty to protect that baby. The mother who has had this pregnancy, regardless of the crisis in which they've gotten it, needs to be protected. Society has a duty to protect this baby in the womb, because it is the right thing to do. It is the good thing to do. And good things are to be done, not because they are easy or convenient, but good things are to be done because they are good. And evil is to be avoided at all costs. Then the frailness, okay? See, the argument that has been advanced, just like I would say, I'm pregnant, I have to go to school, or I have a job to keep, or I'm not ready, okay? These words are used. So let me get rid of this baby. The same reasoning is used in the older ages when we say this mother of ours or this father of ours is consuming a lot of economic resources by keeping them alive or keeping them on medication. Let us end this. Okay? The same reasoning takes place. And if we begin replacing replacing economic considerations for human life, we lose it.
Now, the challenges to the sanctity of life, and you've alluded to also abortion and its consequences. We have emotional, physical, and even spiritual impact. And there are alternative solutions like crisis pregnancy centers, abortion, euthanasia, and end-of-life issues. And really, does life really end? But again, there's a Christian perspective on suffering and dying with dignity. The ethical dilemmas in modern medicine. So what would you say to someone who believes that abortion is a woman's right and choice? My baby, my choice. My dress, my choice.
Yeah.
No pun intended.
We even have organizations here. It used to be called Maristops International.
Yeah.
It is now called MSI. They've rebranded because the name had attracted some negative vibe there. They say that babies by choice, not chance. That's the whole point.
Yeah.
And I think that's where it starts. We all know that once people engage in sexual activity, one of the outcomes could be conception. Okay? So the choice that you make is whether or not to get involved in an activity that may yield in conception. But then someone else would say, no, someone has been raped. Okay? They didn't choose to conceive. We've also had stories of virgin conceptions. I don't know if you've heard about that. Okay? The young kids are playing around with themselves, thinking that for them in their mind, sexual activity is penetration of the genital organs. And they say, we didn't penetrate each other, but look here.
There's an outcome.
I'm pregnant. Okay? So that does not sound like choice. Okay? So then how would we respond to that situation? We go back to first principles. Yes, you've not chosen, but you have a life in you. The next principle is, do you commit evil so that what you consider good thrives, or you protect the life in the womb so that we are able to raise this child. Okay? And when you are in this crisis, usually the panic is the father of the child or the putative father has rejected the pregnancy. Huyo si wangu. It's not me. It is you, someone else you are involved with. And by the people who are dealing in crisis pregnancy centers hear these stories a lot. The average age for people coming to crisis pregnancy centers in Kenya is now 21. And that is university going students largely. So it means that whoever succeeded in sexualizing them while in high school gets a good yield when they become pregnant in university, and then they use the abortion methods available. But even if you are in that crisis situation at age 21, I want to send a message to our viewers that Kenya Christian Professionals Forum has a consortium of pro-life organizations who do exactly that, to respond to women in crisis pregnancy. They will journey with you and help you take the right choices, okay? You cannot choose abortion. You cannot choose evil because you perceive that good will come out of it, okay? You're better off choosing to keep the baby, and if you cannot stay with the baby because it reminds you of the rape, it reminds you of the incest, then we organize for adoption. I'm told that during the Gen Z protests, some kids, young girls, were taken off the street, put into some dungeon, I don't know whether it was a gazetted holding facility or not, and then I'm told men were unleashed on them. This message popped up on a certain WhatsApp group, someone sharing the story with pain, you would feel it. I'm told one of the girls conceived. Luckily, the girl has been able to keep the baby. The baby has been born, but the girl doesn't want to look at the baby. So we who are pro-life are thankful that an intervention was made that allowed this girl to keep the baby. The next step now is to get the baby safe and the mother rehabilitated, so that, because she has a whole life ahead of her, a lot of healing has to take place. And people need to know that these services exist. These interventions exist. They are not usually spoken well enough. Psychologists and counseling associations usually relegate the abortion question, okay? And probably they're not well capacitated to respond to what is associated to this abortion situation. But we will heal our mothers, our sisters better if we respond by affirming them in carrying life to term other than encouraging them to terminate life.
And you've alluded to quite ably there on some long-term emotional and psychological effects of abortion. What about financial pressure? What role does financial pressure play in abortion decisions, and how can we offer better solutions?
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, it is a real challenge. I mean, I'm still struggling to look after myself, or my parents are still looking after me, and now I have another baby here too. There are two approaches that I give. One is first the thinking about it. When a baby is born, we have two ways of thinking about it. We can see a mouth that is coming to eat and a body to be clothed. That would be a liability. And in economics, we try to reduce liabilities. But we could see a brain coming to think and hands coming to work. That approach of treating the conceived baby as a gift, as a blessing to the general family and the mother and the father, even if the father might not be in the equation, is a better approach. If the individuals involved and the community around them adopt the mindset of, oh, we've gotten a gift here, regardless of the circumstances, could be instances, could be we have a gift. Okay, God does not create by accident. Okay, even in the most difficult situations, you could get a baby. Now, if the mindset of the community around this mother, whether young or old, regardless of the crisis in which they are, if the attitude is we have a gift of life, okay, donum vitae, and this mother is carrying a baby, then we mobilize ourselves towards supporting this mother carry the baby to term. We are not very poor. We are just not very good at sharing. We have enough resources to go around. We just have to share them well and direct them to the right consumers. If we, just imagine if each of our churches had a pro-life ministry, Huduma pro-life. Just our churches, meaning that every church has a desk where we report these situations. We have a desk where a Christian would run to. Say, no, people will stigmatize me in my church. Okay, you run to the other church. Okay, another church will have the ministry. If all our churches adopted that approach of being able to respond to crisis pregnancy, and we build this mechanism around the country of how to deal with this, then poverty would no longer be an issue for people to choose to end babies in the womb.
Now, how does euthanasia contradict biblical teachings on the value of suffering and God's sovereignty?
Euthanasia, happy death, or mercy killing, those are the other terms that could be used. There's something that we Christians tend to forget, that if we are to be Christ-like, then we might draw some benefits in uniting our sufferings with the sufferings of the man on Calvary. Mm-hmm. And that whole journey of the scourging at the pillar, of the agony in the garden, of the falls as he falls and rises, of the weeping and the crucifixion. There's a lot of pain that Christ went through. Okay, and as Christians, we are going to be celebrating Easter very soon, but Easter is preceded usually with Good Friday. Mm-hmm. So my understanding is ending someone's life just because they are suffering wouldn't be consistent with the Christian teaching of uniting our suffering with Christ. Okay, so that we may then get the resurrection that comes after that suffering. But it is a teaching that our churches have to adopt. Our churches have to consider developing a spirituality of perseverance and resilience, and knowing that it is possible to attain salvation by uniting your suffering with that of Christ.
Now, we've spoken about life beginning at conception and we journey through life. Mm. On the other side, or the other down the road, in old age, there's that concern that keeping someone alive in old age or illness is burdensome. Mm. I look forward to growing old, but I don't hope to hear my children say, "Mzee bado hajaenda."
Yeah. It is a very sad state of affairs. And there used to be a time when having your parent or grandparent last long was considered a privilege. I'm still thankful I still have both my father and mother. And we buried my grandmother at 103.
Wow.
Okay.
What a blessing.
Yes, and we were very proud to say we have someone who had crossed a century, so potentially one of us is likely to cross the century. We need to be thankful for the gift of life that God gives our people. And I think those of us who are able, still earning an income and still able to provide for the older ones should happily do it. And it should be an absurdity that children and grandchildren are wondering why the old man or the old woman is not dying. It is just an upset of values. It is an upset of values. So I would add to the item of our prayer that people might value the elderly and not discard them. There's a church leader who uses the term, we have adopted a throwaway culture. We throw away food, but we also throw away human beings. Oh, this pregnancy is a bother, flush it. The word is flush that the young people are using. Oh, this old man, this old woman is a bother, send them to hell. And I think it is a very sad state of affairs. But let's pray about it. Let's be hopeful. Yes, let's be hopeful. Yeah.
That's right. Now, the role of the church and society. Here I'm looking at, firstly, community support for expectant mothers and families.
Yeah.
Where the church is role in providing care, counseling, and even material support. I like the part where you said you actually have more than enough. The challenge you have is in sharing.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there could be testimonies of lives saved or transformed by choosing life.
I'd like to first recognize that our churches are doing something. Okay, we have the social action departments of many of our churches, the outreach departments, there are family life offices, there are pro-life offices in some churches, and there's some level of response. The hope would be mainstreaming this, as in each church. Okay, if we are to respond to this, each church over the next couple of years would do well to mainstream response to crisis pregnancy. Especially every time you see the number of statistics of teen pregnancies go up, or say so many teens were pregnant last year, blah, 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 the question should be asked, our church, has it responded to any teen pregnancy in the last 1 year?
Yeah.
That should be a question,
right.
Okay? And let us be open to this response, okay? And it will come, because we have a duty to reach out to those who are most vulnerable. Let us add women in crisis pregnancy to the vulnerable people that we respond to. Because if we did that, the people who are benefiting off abortions and the killing of babies will lose business. If we all choose to intentionally respond to crisis pregnancy. Then the question of advocacy. Okay, KCPF has done what it can, and it's still continuing to do, to speak into our laws, pro-life messages, to speak into our policy, pro-life messages. Okay, we have been to court also to litigate on matters pro-life. I think KCPF has been enjoined in almost every case that they can, where the question of the preborn person is involved. But remember, there are also organizations whose job is to make sure abortion is made available. Okay, there are people whose income is measured by how many abortions were carried out in their area of operations. Yes, there are people who for example, we have a case we are handling in Kakamega, for example. A community health volunteer goes around walking in the villages, invites girls to go and receive sanitary pads at a clinic center, but the girls come out with an implant, a contraceptive implant. Now, these are 13, 14, 15-year-olds. Okay, and parental consent is undermined. No one wants parents to be involved in these decisions because someone has to increase the distribution of this stuff. So the organizations whose purpose is just to limit the births and to sexualize children and to make money off distributing all those materials associated. Yeah, but for response to life, my prayer is that each of our churches in the coming years should have a pro-life ministry. And KCPF has the capacity to help you set that office up. We will train your people, we will train the volunteers in the churches who have offered themselves to minister in this sense. You are an advocate, Wakili. Legislation and advocacy, you've passionately spoken about advocacy here. Understanding Kenya's legal stance on abortion and euthanasia. Keeping it simple, but where do we stand legally in matters abortion and euthanasia? And how can Christians influence policy and engage in society? The legal stand. As I indicated earlier, Article 26 of the Constitution, the life of a person Every person has a right to life, 26:1. 26:2, the life of a person begins at conception. 26:3, no one shall be arbitrarily deprived of life, except as provided by this Constitution or any other written law. Okay? Now that provision created an opening,
a window,
that even if we have the Constitution, some other law down the road could be passed, whether in Parliament or in the county, that would open the gate. Then we have 26:4. Abortion is not permitted unless in the opinion of a trained health professional, the life or health of the mother is in danger. Okay? And in case of emergency treatment, as they call it. Now, Article 26:3 and Article 26:4 of the Constitution created an ambiguity in the Kenyan. And ambiguity means capable of double interpretation. So using that ambiguity, the pushers of abortion are telling everyone in the country that abortion is legal. Abortion is allowed in the country. Those of us who are interested in protecting life from conception to natural death are telling people we can interpret the same provision in a pro-life manner. That's why we must be on the streets of Nairobi tomorrow. That's why we keep going to the courts. That's why we keep talking to parliamentarians and policymakers, so that the interpretation of our Constitution is consistently pro-life. Because we have an article of the Constitution that is half pro-life and half ambiguous.
Now, how do we help Christians move beyond pro-life in words to pro-life in action?
Pro-life in action. First is what we've already agreed.
Yes.
Okay? Make sure if what we've been discussing today has touched you, go to your pastor and ask them, I would like to join Huduma ya Pro-Life. I want to join Pro-Life Service, or at least a department should be created within the social action group or the outreach group that I want to serve in that pro-life section. That's the starting point. The second one, we need to know the triggers. And the triggers are sexualization of our children. Someone is interested in carrying out abortions. The first thing they do is to increase sexual activity amongst those who should be sexually active, because they will conceive. And when they conceive, you will offer them abortion. So most of the sexuality education going on in our informal settlements and out-of-school programs has been hijacked by organizations supported by abortion groups. Because it is one chain. Get them onto sexual activity early enough, they will demand contraception. And contraception always fails. They will conceive and we will have them abort. So a Christian ought to educate themselves first and foremost on what are those dangers in our society that are leading our young people into this behavior. Okay? And then do something about it, again, through our church structure, as we indicated. Then the next thing is Christians must have the courage to vet political leaders based on their position on this question. And we call that faithful citizenship. Increasingly, we need to ask our Christians, when they are going to the ballot box, when they are choosing to support any candidate, regardless of party, the question should be, what is the position of this politician, of this leader on matters life and family? Okay? That is what an individual could do. Then the church provides the square within which we can handle this. I am hopeful that if the right kind of Christians get into leadership positions, if Christians take it seriously to influence the leadership space, of course, we usually do offer support to political leaders and they get elected, but the selection and election of leaders, we have to be intentional as Christians in making sure that whoever we are offering the chance to lead us is grounded in some of these truths.
Now, there are those who say we're imposing religious views on society. How do we respond to them?
But that's the failure to understand human anthropology. The human person is not just Homo sapiens. He's Homo socialis and Homo religious. Okay?
Yes.
It's not just Homo sapiens, not just a wise being. It's a social being, but it's also a religious being. Okay? And religious views come in all forms. You know, by the way, Europe has been secularized. Okay?
Yeah.
But Europe has, they now use the term, I'm not religious, I am spiritual. It's just a different way of expressing the same thing. So to say that we are imposing religious views on others, we also need to ask ourselves whether those who consider themselves non-religious are not imposing their views on us. As I told you at the beginning, the Supreme Court made a decision that allowed the Gay and Lesbian Association, in fact, it imposed it on the NGO board to register them.
And as a precedent now, that can be...
Exactly. So they are imposing those values on a culture that rejects them. Okay, so who is it that is saying we are imposing religious views? We are just living our lives. We are just being human. We are Homo socialis, Homo sapiens, and Homo religious.
I like that. So then, in what ways can churches and faith-based organizations partner with medical professionals to uphold the sanctity of life?
Yeah. I would start by saying that the churches should hunt for their professionals, wherever they are, and minister to them in that context. The forum that KCPF creates is allowing professionals from all corners that have decided they want to take the faith to the marketplace. So we convene in KCPF, and we've been privileged to be blessed by Kenya Conference of Catholic Bishops, the National Council of Churches of Kenya, and Evangelical Alliance of Kenya, who are hosting us today for that purpose of allowing professionals to work in that space. But I think every church, in whichever configuration, should hunt for its professionals and minister to them so that they can carry the faith principles to their workplaces and the marketplace.
And now, as we land this plane of ours in another 2, 3, 4 minutes, what kind of policy changes or legal protections are needed to safeguard life from conception to natural death? Yeah.
We need to be categorical. At the current legal dispensation we have, which says, in the opinion of a trained health professional, we need a law that requires that opinion to be written. So that today, if I hear an abortion has taken place somewhere, the health practitioner who is involved must provide the opinion. And an opinion involves diagnosis, testing, the history, etc. Okay? And whether or not a second opinion was sought before this baby was killed. That is the kind of change I would hope for at that level of the question of abortion. Okay? The other provisions have to be in protecting crisis pregnancy centers, including the establishment. Okay? Especially if each county legislated in favor of the establishment of crisis intervention centers. Of course, we have shelters from domestic violence, etc. Those shelters should be improved to include responding to crisis pregnancy. And then we support them to journey with the mothers in this situation.
2, 3 days back, you had a symposium.
Oh, yes.
Quickly recap what was the substance, the take-homes, and related to also what is happening March for Life and how one can participate physically and even beyond.
Thank you for raising that. Every Wednesday before the March for Life, we have what we call the Life Symposium. All the pro-life groups that we know about in the country convene to reflect on an issue for that year. The issue for this year was mercy and hope in journeying with women and girls in crisis pregnancy. Pro-lifers have been accused for being anti-women because we are opposed to abortion. And we say that we are pro-women because we understand the pain that women go through before they take this decision and after. okay? And it is pro-lifers who are offering a real response to crisis pregnancy. Our adversaries, meaning those who make money off abortion, condemn crisis pregnancy intervention as disinformation or misinformation. So we met to reflect on how best we could have a Christian response to crisis pregnancy. So we pulled together all these organizations. There was good participation from CITAM, social action officers. I think we had several CITAM churches represented there. We had Calvary, we had Nairobi Chapel, we had Catholic groupings and community health volunteers. And the general direction is we are promoting this message. Each of our churches should establish a crisis intervention service, okay? You may not have a shelter, but when you have the service, we will help you know where to refer. Situations that require shelter, we will capacitate your social workers so that they are able to journey with the families that are facing this crisis. Okay, now we did that, and then tomorrow, okay, I was supposed to come here branded, etc., but my paraphernalia was not here.
Yes.
Tomorrow, starting at 8 a.m., we are all assembling at Moi Avenue Primary School.
In Nairobi.
Yes, in Nairobi, down there on Moi Avenue.
Right.
And we are going to be walking for close to 3 to 4 hours across the city, praying and reflecting on various components of threats to life and the Christian disposition towards countering them. So we would encourage our viewers, if you have time tomorrow, if you are not yet plotted your time for tomorrow, please join us at Moi Primary School, 8 a.m. tomorrow, Saturday, 22nd, 2025, March 22nd, 2025, so that we can affirm the principles of life that are contained in our Constitution. We can affirm the biblical principles on life, and we can encourage those who are going through difficult situations that might lead to the ending of life, that they may have the courage to be resilient and to persevere.
Wonderful. So, viewers, we have seen that life is sacred from conception to natural death. And our role is to protect, nurture, and advocate for it. So the question is, what step will you take today to stand for life, whether through prayer, support, or advocacy? Your voice matters. Richard Kakeeto, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Edmond.
Asante sana.
A privilege
to be here. See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
Well, that has been the leader, courtesy of the Evangelical Alliance of Kenya on Hope Media. My name is Edmund Budibo. We don't take your time for granted. The privilege of your time matters to us. Stay well, stay safe, stay blessed. Pro-life.